Hi, everybody. Just wanted to send a quick video explaining how to access exams on SmarterMarks and then how to turn them into your own exams. When you first log on to SmarterMarks, it usually takes you to this forms and versions section, which I've never used. What I end up using the most is the online sitting section, and I'll show you what I mean in a second here. To start with, you'll see that on the top bar here, you have several different options for which sections to go into. And then underneath, you'll see kind of where each of those sections land as far as the folders that each assessment part or assessment template are contained within. So the first thing you need to do whenever you're on SmarterMarks is make sure that you're in the proper section on the top of the screen there. The question bank section is where each of the individual readings and questions are created for multiple choice exams. And it's also where the ins and outs of written response information are put together. And then the assessment templates are how you combine the different readings. So I might have 3 different readings for a reading comprehension exam, and I pull those from 3 different sets of question bank items, and I put all of those into one assessment template. And then from there, I can create an online sitting. So you kind of work your way backwards here. You start with question bank, put together those items, then you turn that into an assessment template, and that gets built into an online sitting. So that's how those 3 sections work. For our intents and purposes, if you're using the exams that are already pre-made, what you'll be primarily doing is taking from the assessment templates and turning that into an online sitting. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do right now. So under assessment templates here, when you're in this section of SmarterMarks, if you click on communities, you should already be added. And if you're not there, let me know, to either BAM English or BAM Social, depending on which department you're in. And so I'm just going to open up the assessment template section for BAM English right now, just as an example. So under 30-1 assessment templates, you'll see several different assessment templates that you can use to generate your own online sitting. You won't be able to edit these files unless you duplicate them, and then you'll be able to make your own versions of them. So for our intents and purposes here, I'll show you what to do for making a reading comprehension exam. And this will be the same for any multiple choice exams that you'd be doing for social studies, for instance. So all I'm going to do is just double click on this one that's labeled 30-1 RC1. Um, and if you have a feeling that a lot of your students were already in Argyle classes at that same 30-1 level, and this is their second time trying it, you might not want to start with the first reading comprehension exam. That might be one that they've seen before. So definitely professional judgment goes into this. I won't dictate exactly which exam to use when, but just know that there might be an overlap for some of your students if you're starting from the bottom and working your way up. So for this particular assessment template, you'll see that I have 3 different readings here: Gross and Coventina, The Country of Illusion, and Richard II. So each of those has a chunk of questions associated with it, but this exam's ready to go. All I need to do to have it ready to go for my class, if I'm an Argyle or Metro teacher, is I just need to click on where it says build and then build online sitting. And what this is doing is it's generating a version of this exam that I'm able to use in my classroom with my specific students. For the sitting title, what I might rename this is, I might just keep it generic so that the students aren't able to know which number the exam is, because there might be that temptation for them to share information about the exam questions with their classmates or with other people that they know will be in an Argyle or Metro class. So I might call this something more like RC exam. And I might even throw a date in there too, if I'm using it on February 24th, for instance. I might title it that way. Another way that I could do this is just call it 30-1 RC exam A, really whatever works best for setting up for your exams, for your class situation. And I'm just going to call this test for now. Well, that's a little bit ambiguous. I'll just call this template, I guess, or maybe I'll just try to treat it like an actual exam here. I'll just say testing. There we go. And then I can choose where to save it. I save all of my online settings just in my home folder there. You may want to organize it by your class name, by the subject name, however you want to organize that for yourself. So I'm just going to save that under the home section, and now I can build that assessment. All right. So after I've clicked there, this is the next screen that pops up, and I can change the name under edit settings here if I want to. I think if I'm not mistaken, this is the name that more shows up on the teacher end of things, not the student end. Under where it says opens, I'm going to switch this to opening with a start code instead, because I don't want it to just open at a specific date and time. What if everybody doesn't have their cameras ready to go yet? I want to be able to control when the assessment's available for all the students once everybody's kind of settled in, has their cameras positioned properly, and is ready to go. So I'm going to set that as open with start code instead. And then this is the start code that I'll give to the students once they're all ready to go in the Google Meet. The other thing I'm going to change here under the edit settings is the time limit. Instead of it being a time limit that's specified, I'm just going to click on none instead in that section. And then for the student note section, I can use this to give them one last reminder in case they're not listening to me at the beginning of the meet, one last reminder to make sure that they're not going off tab and to make sure that their cameras are set up appropriately for the entire assessment. If I want to, I can add that in there. The shuffle each attempt section here gives me a bit of control over what kind of shuffling goes on here. If I want to make sure that they're not able to share via a device that they have under their desk, that 3A or something like that. If I shuffle each attempt, it's going to make the distractors in a different order for each student. Um, and I can also, under the results section here, I usually just unclick outcomes because I'm not giving them outcome-based information at the end of the exam. So I'll just take that off. But if I want them to be able to see what score they got at the end of their exam, I can leave this clicked here where it says show and results when submitted. And so that way, as soon as they submit their exam, it gives them a percentage score that they got on the exam right away. They don't have to wait for me to go through the exam and send that to them. So that's just one of the other settings that can be tweaked really easily in this particular section. So I've got that all set up. I've got my sitting shuffling here as well. I've got the time limit set up the way I want it to be, and so I can just click save here. And now where it's ended up is just in the online sitting section here. If I go back here again, it will show up. I've just saved it to my home folder. So that's going to show up as just 30-1 RC1. So you can see it's just filed it under the name that I gave it there. And then I can tweak some additional settings here too. Under settings here again, if I want to change the name that I filed it under, I can change that there. If I've suddenly decided that actually I don't want to shuffle the attempts here, I can still change that, and I can still access that start code to give to the students on exam day, because usually I'll have the sitting set up at least the day before, so I'm not worried about scrambling to get that done on the day of the assessment. That's all there really is to it. If the exam's already been made as an assessment template in that BAM folder, in either the BAM Social or BAM English folder, that's all you need to do is just make those slight tweaks to it, and then your online sitting is good to go. And then for adding your students, if you have a class list already, all you need to do is copy and paste that class list under the email address section here. So I'll go add students. Either if you have a class list set up already, you can grab it from there. And if you don't have it set up, you can set it up right here by way of email address. And as long as there's a line break between each email address, it'll add them quite easily into the assignment. There might be the case where a student hasn't used SmarterMarks before, and that'll show up as hasn't been verified. And so they'll get an email sent to their inbox saying, hey, set up your SmarterMarks account. It's really easy for them to do it. It's all part of the Edmonton Public Google Suite. So their email address is already associated with SmarterMarks as long as they go through just clicking a couple things to go through those menus, and then they're good to go. So that's how you set it up on the student end, and then they'll each have access to the exam. In the next video, I'll explain what to do on exam day, and then afterwards as well, what to do with the results. All right, take care.